Welcome to the PortlyAI Human Capital Squad Talk podcast, where we engage in conversations about the changing business landscape and how human capital and other C-suite leaders are approaching this. I'm Susan Gans, and I'm your host. I'm an advisor with PortlyAI and the Human Capital Squad leader. In addition, I have my own consulting firm where I'm an outsourced chief of staff and business strategist with GAN Strategic Solutions. Today, we're certainly in for a treat. Joining us today is Patrick McAndrew. He is an actor, a TV host, a writer, and a responsible AI strategist. He is a thought leader and speaker on responsible AI development and the use in the entertainment industry, and has been featured in various publications, including AI News, Music.ai, among others. He is the founder of the Future of Entertainment Alliance, a cultural think tank that brings together artists and technologists to explore the evolving landscape of storytelling, creativity, and technology, advocating for human artistry in the age of AI. And I must read a disclaimer. That is, the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are expressed solely by Patrick McAndrew and do not necessarily reflect those of any other organizations or affiliations he's associated with. And with that, I'm excited to welcome Patrick to our show.
Susan, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, wonderful to have you. And let's get into the conversation. So, in the context of the entertainment industry and the overall work that you do, please share with our audience a brief background of the industry and the changes and transformations that you've seen and experienced over the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. The entertainment industry is one that is always one of the first to adopt new changes in technology. You think back to, when the camera first came out and how, movies accelerated at the turn of the I guess going into the 20th century. And really through the entire 20th century, you think about television in the mid century, and with every technology that has come out, the entertainment industry has been on the forefront of developing that. And that is definitely the case with artificial intelligence as well. There's been so much going on in how the entertainment industry is using AI, from digital replicas to voice cloning, and we could kind of talk about the responsibility and ethical use behind that as well. But then also creating whole new worlds as well. This has been the case to a degree with CGI as well, that really kind of rose to prominence in, I would say, the late 90s. But it's really expanded into not only the production process but post-production as well. Different editing tools that are out there that a lot of editors or other artists are using in the post-production process, and even different industries within the entertainment industry as well. So you hear about AI creating music now as well, and so there's a lot of mixed opinions about that too. How is AI being used in the theater and Broadway industry also? There is certainly a lot going on, and I know that I speak not only for myself, but for many people, in that sometimes it's tough to keep up with a lot of the changes. But I think at the heart of it, there is still this drive to keep humans at the central, because we're dealing with a creative industry where so much of that creativity is based on human collaboration. So that's something that I advocate for deeply as we're seeing a lot of these changes starting to take place.
Absolutely. And I'm just thinking about all the different types of camera lenses and camera forms and sizes that
Oh yeah.
have come along, and AI glasses and taking pictures and shooting movies from those, right? So lots of change. So, what are you doing personally as a leader to drive change, and how is your personal and professional perspectives kind of informing the way that you're leading here?
Yeah, great question. So, as you mentioned before, I'm the founder of an organization called the Future of Entertainment Alliance, which is really this cultural think tank that brings together technologists and artists to talk about what's happening in the industry, to really figure out that balance of how we can leverage these AI tools and expand our creativity rather than replacing it and making um, human workers obsolete in the process. And much of my work, both in the Future of Entertainment Alliance and outside of that, has been very focused on, okay, how can we use AI responsibly? How can we ensure that this is being done ethically with appropriate guardrails in place, to make sure that not only are the human workers protected, but also that, their copyright and IP is protected at the same time. That could look, like a variety of different things. It could be making sure that there's accountability baked into how an AI system is created. So who is accountable when the AI system goes awry? There's transparency. So, how does the AI system work? And do the people using the AI system understand how it's working as well? There's guardrails around data privacy protection, cybersecurity as well, making sure that AI systems are fair and there's no bias baked into how the system is operating. So, anyways, I kind of go through these sort of foundational elements to what responsible AI looks like, because if they're not baked into the foundation, it's much more difficult to implement them after the fact. When the AI system is running and is kind of beyond repair outside of just completely stopping the system from there. So a lot of what I advocate for is not only for responsible use of AI within the entertainment industry, an industry that is so or at least up until this point, has been so reliant on human labor, not only actors, but directors, writers, as we talked about before, editors, costumers, costume designers as well. It really runs the gamut. But it's not only that responsible component, it's also the education of it as well. A lot of artists, and for good reason, are very turned off by AI right now. They don't want anything to do with AI. They hate it. They think it's terrible. And I definitely see where they're coming from. But I also am of the belief that AI isn't going anywhere. If anything, it's only going to become more prevalent. So we need to figure out the safest and most responsible way to accept this, because there are some benefits with AI as well, that I think sometimes are difficult to see now. So it's figuring out that balance. It's figuring out that balancing act, and education. AI literacy is a big part of that as well. You could argue that that is also part of responsible AI is AI literacy, but that's like another component in addition to that responsibility component.
Yes, lots to figure out there, right? Lots
Yeah, yeah,
of questions, and even on the point about trying to eliminate bias, we also have to remember it's also humans who who are
yep,
feeding information and data into the
yes,
AI,
exactly.
and humans come with points of view and perspectives. um So we have to be mindful of the humans before we can be mindful of the technology,
Right,
probably.
yeah, in a lot of ways, absolutely.
So what lessons have you learned to date as you're going through this transformation journey with the entertainment industry?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that for me, the biggest thing has been to remain curious through all of these changes, to keep humans front of mind. And I think, there's great unions like SAG-AFTRA, the union
Mm-hmm.
for, screen and film and television performers, among among other types of performers as well, that really advocate for this too. Uh, it's being curious about how these AI tools could help, as I said before, help expand creativity. Because I think something that doesn't get talked about as often is that there are a lot of independent creators out there, a lot of independent filmmakers who, maybe 10, 20 years ago would never be able to create their own film without a huge budget behind them, without a
Right.
huge team behind them. Now, through AI and through other emerging technologies, these people who might not have had that access before now have access to these tools at a relatively low cost to be able to create their own films, which I think is a good thing. It's an opportunity for filmmakers to get creative with very little resources. I do think that then they would want to grow and graduate to working with a bunch of people, with a crew, because I do believe that collaboration element is key, but it at least allows them to experiment. And I think at the end of the day, that's, one of the biggest lessons and takeaway that I have had is that is to not be too quick to judge these tools. I think that as artists, we're very passionate and emotional people, which I think is which is I think is a very positive thing. I think it's, we care and we care about the art that we want to bring about in this world. I think remaining curious about AI and how AI could help support us in our visions, our artistic endeavors, and help support us to bring those about rather than looking at it as a complete replacement for our creativity, looking at it as this enemy. Then I think that could open a lot of doors of opportunities for us. Now, of course, there's a whole other kind of bag of issues with regards to like sustainability practices with artificial intelligence and the water usage and all of that. And that's certainly an issue that needs a solution, hopefully sooner rather than later. So that's important to consider as well. But yeah, it's about finding this balance. Remaining curious, I would say, is really the biggest lesson that I just continue to learn and try to keep practicing as well as, these technologies rapidly advance and we're all trying to keep up.
Yes, that always be learning kind of mindset is very important. But I also want to highlight a point that you made with respect to access to tools and not necessarily needing to have this huge team to start out. So I think what you're talking about is really about democratizing the ability to create and put your original work out in the world, by leveraging tools and maintaining your voice at the same time. Which brings me to my next questions, like which is about skill sets. What would you say are the skill sets that are needed to navigate through these changing times?
Ooh, very good question. I think that this kind of goes even, before we started to see kind of this rapid advancement of AI is just a willingness to collaborate is going to be even more important as AI becomes more and more advanced. We could see that as collaboration with our fellow humans. We could see that with collaboration with the AI as well. I think that's something that we're going to be seeing more and more of. I think that if we close doors, that doesn't do anything for anyone. So I think being able to keep an open mind in how we collaborate and create with one another is going to be paramount. As AI and other emerging technologies get more and more sophisticated, it's going to be human skill sets that are going to ground us and be more important because in some ways, especially if like we're going to be collaborating with AI, it's going to be our human skill sets that make us unique and make us a valuable contribution to the collaboration with AI. I think that, we see this with people who are using AI to help them write things, is that, an AI might put together an okay draft, a mediocre draft, and it's up to us to be able to add in our own expertise, our own perspective, our own point of view in that collaboration. Or vice versa. Maybe we put together our thoughts on paper and we could run it through AI to check it for grammatical errors or syntax or just making sure that things are flowing nicely. And so I think that sort of collaboration is going to become even more important and leaning into our humanity in our work with technology is so critical. And so that's something that I think has always been important. It's always been
Yes.
important to, I think, be empathetic to one another, to have a collaborative mindset, to have that self-awareness, to be a really strong and active listener. I think that's always been important, but I think it's going to be even more important as we progress.
I agree with you. It's that open-mindedness, again, what you were talking about before, that curiosity, and not forgetting what the human experience and expertise has been. And I think also being nimble, right? And um open to new experiences, to not be afraid to fail. That
Yeah.
experimentation that you talked about, I think also, um, even though you didn't state it in that way, you did state it earlier. So I wanted to bring that out as well. So given that there's this rapid pace of business and change, how do you personally take your care of yourself and remain grounded?
That's a great question. It's funny. I think that for me, what keeps me most grounded is, well, okay, I would say that there's two answers to this.
Okay.
Yeah, one I would say is just in the relationships that I have. So having conversations with my wife, with my friends, with my family, and being able to be present and in the moment with them, I think grounds me in an age where we're all very glued to our screens, where we're all very glued to our devices. And for me, where I work in tech, like being able to kind of disassociate with that, at least for a little bit, to, just be able to connect with a fellow human being. So that's one element of it. And then the second element I would say is connecting with like my artistry, with my work as an artist. So, whether it is a play that I'm acting in, or whether it's I'm currently developing a new musical. So it's like whether it's writing the songs and the music for that, or working on the script, being able to focus on something that is solely creative, is something that allows me to stay grounded in a world that is, kind of just looking ahead, what's next, what's next, what's next. I think that a lot of the work I do in responsible I kind of see as research for my creative projects. It's like, okay, what's happening in this tech space, and how can I comment on that through art, through theater, through film, through other mediums. And for me, that's kind of a way of dissecting, like, okay, what's my opinion on this? uh, as an not only as an artist but as a human being as well. And so being able to take a step back and engage with not only my fellow humans who I have great relationships with, but also to engage with my artistry allows me to just be a bit more grounded in this age that is just very hyper digital, hyper technological.
Yes. So I think what you're saying is really to be in the present and to enjoy your wife, your friends, your family, and um, embracing your creativity as a way of staying grounded and not having to be 100 steps ahead in
Yes,
thinking
yeah.
about what's next, which dovetails to another question where we were discussing this before we started to record, which was about how your work and um, theater and being in the entertainment world has really informed your responsible AI work and kind of vice versa. So, can you take us a little deeper into that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it was through so I went to school for theater. I got both a bachelor's and a master's in theater. And for my thesis in graduate school, I wrote a one-man show that was essentially explored our relationship to technology and each other. And since it was a one-man show, it's kind of like, how does technology interrupt my relationship with the audience? And that's really what kind of led me into the tech space was that show. I went to graduate school in Villanova outside Philadelphia, and after that moved to New York, where I lived for many years. And I brought the show to New York, and it was through that show that I started to meet with a lot of people who were part of this, what's called this responsible tech movement, who were academics, technologists, psychologists, people who were trying to figure out, okay, how is technology impacting humanity? I met so many great people. I had a podcast at the time that was talking about these topics of like, okay, how does technology impact and change our relationships? And I thought a lot about, okay, what's my kind of voice in this space? What could I kind of bring different to the table? And so that's when I started to write a lot of shows about technology and its impact on society, impact on the world. Some are kind of commentaries on present day. Others that I've written are kind of like cautionary tales, so to speak, of like what might happen if we're not as mindful as we should be. But I think that in a lot of ways, theater, while there are could be technical elements to theater, of course, you have like the lighting and the sound and like a variety of different elements. At its heart, I kind of feel like it's this antithesis to tech in a lot of ways, in that when we're dealing with technology, yes, while we may be communicating with people on the other end, kind of like what we're doing right now with this podcast, uh, you're going through the context of this device or this AI system or a smartphone to engage with the world. And I think I could go off on a tangent in how like social media has kind of created these alternate realities for all of us, and has led to like a lot of the polarization. That's a whole other conversation.
Yes.
But with theater, what I love about theater so much, and I would say this extends to film to a degree as well, at least in kind of an acting standpoint, is that it requires you to, exactly as you were saying before, it requires you to be present. It requires you to listen actively. It requires you to have good communication because if you're on stage telling this story, you don't want to lose the audience. You know, you want the audience to be along for the ride with you. And whereas with technology, so many times we have multiple tabs up, our attention is all over the place. We're scrolling through many different apps, and our attention isn't focused. Whereas with theater, it has to be focused. It requires that in order to, be able to put on at least a decent performance, so to speak. So, because of that, I think that my work in the theater has very much informed my work in responsible AI, in that being able to lean into those innately human characteristics that are so important to cultivate in the theater are just as equally important to keep in mind when we are developing AI systems. You know, to go back to what we were saying before about those foundations of accountability, transparency, privacy. Those are foundations to what responsible AI looks like because it keeps humans in mind. It keeps humans uh, in the kind of the purview of, okay, why are we developing these AI systems? What purpose are they serving? And so being able to keep humans in mind, and then by extension, those skill sets of listening, communication, self-awareness, uh, in mind while creating AI is so critically important. And as I was saying before, it's go as AI just, gains in intelligence, it's going to be those human skill sets that give us a a leg or a competitive advantage moving forward. It's really going to distinguish ourselves from AI or robots or whatever ends up, coming into reality in the years ahead. So, so that's it's been very interesting. I never would have thought that my background in theater and acting and performance would inform so much of my perspective on responsible tech and responsible AI, but it really has to a large degree.
So thank you for that discussion because I never really thought about, that audience and the focus and how that's a parallel to putting humans at the forefront of AI, almost like your mini theater, if you will, mini
Yeah, yeah.
performance. Um, so I learned something new as well. So as we wrap up, what would you like our audience to remember about today's conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. I think that I would want people to walk away from this conversation with like truly thinking about what it is that makes storytelling and art so appealing to them. Like why do we love movies? Why do we love great classic movies? Why do we love certain songs or bands or singers? Why do we love specific artists, or why do we love Broadway, and why do we love theater? Like, and obviously all your listeners might not love all of those things. Maybe they hate going to the movies, or they might not vibe with a specific singer or something like that. But in a general sense, I think it would be important for listeners to walk away thinking about, like, okay, why is it that I'm drawn to art? Because I think that a big reason why we are is because a fellow human being created it. A fellow human being brought it into fruition, brought it into this world for us to enjoy. And I think that there's something that's really special about that. And so I ask our listeners to think about that, because as we develop AI systems, it allows us to think about, okay, why are we developing these AI systems, and how can we develop them in a way that's going to support that feeling of enjoying life, enjoying art, rather than developing them in a way that's just going to kind of hijack those things away from us. So I would love to just have audience members or listeners today think about, okay, what is it about storytelling and art that draws us in, that draws you in as a listener?
Yes. As you talked about it, at the end of the day, it is humans in some form that is
Yeah, right, right.
bringing us the art or inspiring it on, something that didn't exist before, and that um, people have some sort of emotional, sometimes visceral, some sort of reaction makes them perhaps stop and think or reframe something, or can have tears, can have laughter. And we all experience it in different ways. And I think that's something that's also fun. And I have a fondness for the theater because no two performances are ever alike. They're just
Right, exactly. Yep, yep.
people might miss their mark. We may or may not know it. They might trip. We may or may not know it.
Yeah, that aliveness is so critical. It's so amazing.
Um, so that makes it totally fun. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciated this conversation. Um, so I wanted to call out some of the other things that I particularly took away from this conversation, and it's really about remaining present and embracing our humanity. I think you really echoed that in your comments today, and talking about the importance of uh, collaboration, and thinking about how at the core, humans can then expand their creativity and capabilities by leveraging tools that are now available to us that weren't previously. So I appreciate that. I want people to find you. So you can find Patrick in a couple of different ways. You can go to his website, which is Patrick, PATRICK hyphen McAndrew, McAndrew.com. You can find Patrick on LinkedIn. His first name, Patrick J. McAndrew. And you could also find him at Instagram, patrick.mcandrew. So wonderful to have you. I'd like to let our audience know that to find out more information about Portly AI and Squad Talk, please visit portly.ai, PORTLY.ai. And in the squad spirit, keep growing and evolving and leading the way. Thanks again, Patrick.
Thank you so much, Susan.